SETA Foundation. Omer, welcome to the program. Just tell us about the tactics that the regime has employed here. Is it a bit like Aleppo a few years ago? In other words, threaten the civilian population so much with your attacks that actually the rebels have to say, we need to leave before all the civilians die?
So actually, if we look into the past of the Syrian civil war, we see that the tactics of the Assad regime have not only been used in Aleppo, but also in Ghouta, Homs, and Zabadani. So it's a common regime strategy to besiege armed opposition together with the civilian population and to make civilian suffering as a vehicle, as a tool to force the Syrian armed opposition to surrender to the regime's demands. But what makes Daraa al Balad, the neighborhood of Daraa city, more important or significant are two aspects. The first, Daraa al Balad and the Al Amori mosque inside this neighborhood were the place of the start of the Syrian revolution against Assad regime. So it has a symbolic meaning. Secondly, what makes this area important is that it's an reconciled area. So when the Assad regime captured all of Daraa in the previous years, and after the Americans withdrew their support to the armed Syrian opposition, Russia brokered and sponsored reconciliation agreements, according to which this armed Syrian opposition would only hand over heavy weapons and would maintain a certain amount of autonomy in their own cities, in their own local governance. And Russia tried to propagate this reconciled agreement as an alternative to the international process of political transition according to the UN. However, we see now that the Russian-sponsored reconciliation agreements have not only failed, but they have been exploited to end any form of local governance in Syria. So Daraa al Balad marks the end for the Russian proposed idea of reconciliation agreements. And now we see that the Assad regime has explicitly used force against civilians. They have starved the civilians in Daraa al Balad just to achieve control over one neighborhood in Daraa, which shows that the regime cannot and will not accept any form of opposition or any form of local self-governance. So this makes someone wonder how peace can be ever achieved in Syria if Russia and Iran continues to support this Assad regime. And it shows that with Assad, there's no solution to Syria.
Omer, I think it's a really, really important point that you make, because Daraa is not a rebel stronghold, right? In 2018, the regime retook Daraa. There are just a few pockets of resistance of rebels who had those light weapons under the previous agreement that was reached in 2018. It's a little bit different in the northwest of Syria, which is really the last remaining part of the country which is not under the regime's control. What do you make of this idea of sending people from Daraa who don't accept the Russian brokered agreement to northwestern Syria? It's almost becoming like an open-air prison.
So I would say these areas have already a real high increase of population. So the population in Syria's northwest increased to 2.5 times more than it was in the pre-war population. So even considering that many of the people from there have actually fled towards Turkey as refugees, still the population has increased there. So it has become a safe haven for all of the Syrians who cannot live under the Assad regime. So transporting these people from Daraa to the Syria's north will just increase the human suffering in Syria's north, but would also have another effect. And this effect will be that in Daraa, these other reconciliation agreement zones will also soon collapse, because Daraa al Balad was the strongest autonomous self-governance in the region. If it collapses, the others will follow soon, and this will mark the end for any form of self-governance in the Syria's south. And in Syria's north, the people there are living under the control of the Syrian interim government, which has proven itself to be able to govern an area composing of all of the ethnicities and all of the demographic population of all of Syria. And I hope that someday the international community will recognize the popularity of the Syrian interim government and would start to support it as an alternative for Syrians to live on.
Omer, thank you so much indeed. Omer Ozkizilcik from the SETA Foundation.